This is the Alden Report.
All right, well, this episode is brought to you in part by the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read by Andrew Cap. Yeah, you heard it right. The last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. Listen, if you don't believe me, go over to Amazon and read the over 1,600 five-star reviews from excited readers who, after all the books, all the programs, and all the other nonsense out there, finally found a book that explains the law of attraction like nothing you've ever heard before. Not only does it include fun, user-friendly methods, but it's going to hold a mirror up to you, the reader, and explain what's happening in your head whenever you're trying to work on yourself. It'll explain why you get excited, why you even start to use what you learn, and even begin to get results, but then you still quit. This book will show you how to overcome that, and it's going to show you how to manifest the things that you want most in your life. So check it out by going to lastlawofattractionbook.com. That's lastlawofattractionbook.com. It's going to auto forward you to Amazon, where you can pick it up on Kindle, paperback, or even audiobook. Listen, I've read this book myself. I've even interviewed Andrew on the Alden Report, and I'm telling you, this is in fact the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, and it's going to change your life. So go ahead and pick up a copy by visiting lastlawofattractionbook.com. That's lastlawofattractionbook.com.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, my name is Michael Alden. We are here in Blue Vase Studios. And as always, I tell you, I'm super excited to do this podcast, the Alden Report. I'm also super excited to meet interesting people and to talk to people that are, doing great things in the world. My next guest is an internationally recognized speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author, and he's just doing some great things in the world of happiness. And I'm really excited to talk to him about happiness and what that really means to him and what that really means to really kind of everyone, especially in what we're going through right now in the world. Please help me welcome Mr. David Meltzer. David, thanks so much for being my guest.
Oh, it's my privilege and pleasure. So excited to be here. And you are helping with my mission, like you said, to empower over 1 billion people to be happy.
So I know, you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you spending the time. So I usually like to just kind of keep people here as long as possible. I don't like to tell people that up front, but I know that you have a hard kind of stop time. So I'm not gonna do that to you, David, although I'd love to, because you're just an interesting guy. You've done some cool things. So let's just jump right into that topic that we talked about. So, listen, you've written, several books. I know that you have a program that people can participate in on your website as well, where you're talking about happiness. And as someone, real quick, you rose to the top, so to speak, within the world of business success, and then you had also just an epic kind of fail, if we want to call it that. Falls. We don't really like to call it failures, right? Zig Ziglar calls them temporary defeats. But tell us a little bit about that moment and what happened, and then we'll kind of, I guess, get into the whole happiness talk.
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up poor, wanting to be rich so I could buy my mom a house and a car. I had a single mom, 6 kids, worked 2 jobs. So my whole dream was to get my mom out of that situation, to buy her a house and a car. And by 24, when I graduated law school, I was a millionaire and I was able to do that. And that one moment really reinforced that money buys love and happiness. So for the next decade, everything I did reaffirmed that money would buy me love and happiness. And I was very focused on making a lot of money and being happy. Unfortunately, as the aggregated effect of this misunderstood currency, the object of energy we put into the flow called money, without the other currency, which I learned later on when I lost everything, over $100 million, I lost my faith, is a terrible combination. I would much rather live in the world of not enough, where things happen to me as a victim, than in a world of just enough when everything's happening for me, buying things I don't need to impress people I don't like. And where I had to reconcile that as I lost everything is taking accountability, being forgiving, and being grateful for everything I had allowed me to transcend to a world of more than enough, a world of more than enough of everything for everyone, a world where everything comes through me with appreciation for everyone else. So nothing happens to me or for me anymore. It happens through me. And I learned those lessons that money does not buy love or happiness, but it does allow you to shop. And if you reconcile your shopping, the currency of money, with the currency of faith, and if you shop for the right things, you can be extremely happy. You can make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. And that's what I'm on a mission to do, is to teach people, whether it's with free training, private groups, one-on-one consulting, all of the things I do, from my podcast to my TV shows to my books to the interviews. Everything that I do is simply to teach people to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun.
We have actually a lot in common that you probably don't know. I'm also an attorney. I also declared bankruptcy while I was in law school, actually. So that was kind of a tough decision to make. I actually had to call the bar association because I wasn't sure if declaring bankruptcy would actually preclude me from being admitted. And so, that moment again, and I also grew up very poor as well. And we call that, the gift of poverty. I think it's a great thing when you don't have money, and then when you get it. But, so when you're in that dark moment, and I think this is important too for people to understand, because happiness, I own a brand called Wicked Happy. And I talk a lot about happiness as well. Is when you're in that dark moment, though, David, when you look, to do what you did up until that point, graduate law school, become a lawyer, all that stuff that everyone probably said was never going to happen, right? And then now you're a millionaire, and then you lose it all. If you could just talk a little bit about, like, as a human being, really what that felt like, and what was the moment where you kind of realized, like, okay, this is not where I want to be, and how do I get out of it? Because I know what it's like to walk into a federal courthouse and to declare bankruptcy, and as a law student, right? And you are already a successful lawyer. So if you could talk a little bit about that, because it's painful, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think it was worse than just even being a successful lawyer, right? I was a multimillionaire. I owned a golf course, a ski mountain, 33 homes. I ran big businesses. I was the CEO of Samsung's phone division, the first smartphone in the world in 99. I was running, at the time I went bankrupt, the most notable sports agency in the world, called Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. They had made the movie Jerry Maguire about the firm that I worked for. And, I had not only multi-millions of dollars, but I had access to everything. All the billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs, celebrities, athletes, entertainers, Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, Masters, Kentucky Derby, Breeders' Cup, the ESPYs, the Emmys, the Oscars, the Grammys, anything I wanted to do. So it was more than just being a lawyer. In fact, I hadn't practiced law since I graduated law school, so I got involved in the internet. And so I think understanding the breadth of where I was, the interesting thing was my true bottom was 2 years before I claimed bankruptcy. Because I had so much money, it took a long time in order to create the effects and the causes that create the bankruptcy and the technical, experience that it did. But for me, it was 2 years before, when my wife, was the only person to stand up to me and basically tell me she wasn't happy and she was leaving, as I came home wasted from the Grammy Awards with Little John, and told me to take stock in who I was and who I wanted to become. And that's where these ideas of gratitude and forgiveness and accountability and inspiration or effective communication came about, is when 2 years before I lost everything, I created a new path for myself, a new journey. I started reconciling not only the law of gravity that says I'm happy where I'm at today, I'm at the right place at the perfect time, but the law of Goya, which I always implemented, and probably so did you, knowing your background, getting off my ass, Goya. But I incorporated and reconciled the law of attraction, which is, I really started living with faith being my GPS. You talked about failures, setbacks, mistakes that people make. If you go the wrong route on your GPS, it reroutes you back to the destination. Well, faith is the super GPS, because not only when you make a mistake, miss a direction, have a setback, or other people may call it a failure, not only will it reroute you, but it will give you a better destination to go to. Faith is that incredible. So, to be happy where you're at, angle to what you want, and end up having faith that you're going to end up somewhere better than that, is what I learned through the 2-year period where I reconstructed and took stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. The bankruptcy itself, the lesson and the hardest part was telling my mom, because I had forgotten to take my mom's house out of my name. So not only did I lose everything, The only reason I wanted to be rich was to buy my mom a house and a car, and I lost her house. So I had to go to her house, tell her, number one, I had lost everything, but two, she had to move. She had lost her house. And that's when I learned the greatest and most valuable lesson of the bankruptcy is when my mom responded as I was crying at her front door with blame, shame, and justification. She looked at me and said, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Can I give you some money?" Never once concerned about herself, completely unconditional with her love towards me and her actions towards me. And as I sat in front of her, I thought to myself, man, here's a woman who made no more than $17,000 a year, working 2 jobs, filling up turnstiles at the 7-Eleven with greeting cards, teaching the 2nd grade, being paid nothing, and she gets it, and I don't. And so from that time on, I started to live by those values, but also with an abundant attitude, an unconditional attitude to be of service of others and to find out how I could be of value or service to others unconditionally.
Man, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I could, so I'm in my head, I'm like trying to speed things up, but so, all right. Well, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Alden Report. You probably already know this, but here in the United States, investors and big corporations pay between 0 and 25% in taxes, and many times it's 0, while individuals pay between 30 and 50% in taxes, and small businesses pay between 40 and 60% in taxes. What you probably don't know is that the federal tax code is behavior-based. Well, what does that mean? It means if you behave like an investor in a big corporation, you can access the same rates. That's why nth degree CPAs exist, to show businesses and owners how to modify their behavior and to access the same rates as investors in big corporations. With tax rates likely on the rise, I urge you to sign up for their next webinar by visiting www.rigmywealth.com/Alden. That's www.rigmywealth.com/Alden. So, okay, so you go through this difficult event. I've had Les Brown on the podcast, and he says, Michael, it's the struggle that creates life. But I don't care what anybody says. Nobody likes it. And I asked him and a lot of other people, is the pain necessary in order to get to that next level, in your life? But when I think about, the kind of the pains that you went through, and those, and how your perspective changed, was there someone that helped you through that, other than your mom? Because what you said about you, and it's funny, my mom is exactly the same. I didn't buy her house, bought her car, but it isn't her name though. So actually, you know what? Shit, it's not. It's actually my name. I think about it. That's right.
There we go. The lesson of the day.
I gotta write that down. So was there someone who said to you, other than your mom, like David, because I had someone come to me and say, Mike, it's gonna be okay. I built a massive house in a private neighborhood in the town that I grew up with, in the projects in the same neighborhood. And then a couple of years later, I had to put it on the market. This is post bankruptcy, and I remember that feeling of pain. But I had a mentor of mine, kind of talk me through it. Did you have mentors and other people that really helped you through that? I mean, you mentioned faith, but was there one individual, or was there a group that helped you through that?
There was, after I realized the reason I went bankruptcy is I never asked anyone for help. That everyone had just said I was Midas and everything I touched turned to gold. So why would I need to ask the advice, opinion, or get any help from anyone else? I hadn't instituted radical humility in my life. And so, number one, my wife was a beacon. She's the only one. There's a book by Stephen Hertz that's called Don't Take Yes for an Answer. Well, she stopped giving me yes as an answer. And she, to this day, just recently, calls me on my bullshit and does not allow my ego-based consciousness to direct my actions anymore, that I'm not going to live projecting something I think I am or I want to be. Instead, I have to be honest with myself. So my wife played a critical role. My dad had also left when I was 5, but he had given me a jacket at 30 that changed my life. I hated him at the time for doing it. He gave me a jacket with no pockets. First gift he had given me in 20 years. That jacket saved my life because as I was about to leave my wife and blame her for everything. And she wasn't grateful. And I looked over in my closet, as my dad had told me. I hung it in my closet begrudgingly because I hated him for it, because he told me that I thought money bought love and happiness. I was just like him. And I told him, man, I'm nothing like you. You're a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, overseller, back-end seller. I'm nothing like you. I hate you. And those words just, they resonated in my mind, because I looked at that jacket and it saved my life, because I realized I was the liar, the cheater, the manipulator, the overseller. I hated myself. I didn't hate my wife. I didn't hate my dad. I hated myself, and I needed to do something to change myself. And so I started to pick out mentors that sit in the situation that I want to be in. And I was blessed, because of my job, to have great people like Leigh Steinberg and Warren Moon and Steve Wynn, and just a litany of humongous people that I could go to and, tell, Steve Wynn, hey, I want to learn about your relationship to money, because I got a horrible relationship with money, which probably you did too, Mike. And it's partly that energy of not feeling worthy and not understanding how to receive and to be worthy of everything you receive. You're self-sabotaging and spiraling because of my relationship with money. I had great mentors in business, Lou Lombardi. So I still to this day aggregate my mentors. That's why I have such a huge mentoring program myself, is I want to be able to give what I've paid, meaning the dummy tax, to as many people as I can. I can't pay people state or federal taxes, but I can pay a higher tax, which is called the dummy tax. And I've paid a lot of that. So I try to share that dummy tax with as many people as I can.
Man, again, I continue to pay it. I think sometimes too. It's interesting too what you said. When you have influential people and super successful people within your circle of influence, so to speak, and you'd mentioned earlier about you didn't ask. Talk a little bit about asking for help. I mean, my first book is titled "Ask More, Get More," and I think for me, it's always been. The title kind of speaks for itself, but I think a lot of people misinterpret what asking really means. It's not a selfish thing. It's not a greedy thing. If we don't ask, we don't get the answer. Talk a little bit about the humility in asking for help.
Yeah, most people think they're not enough. And when we ask for help, they think you're affirming that you're not enough. But the truth is that you're more than enough when you ask for help, because you have the humility to allow all of that you receive to come through you for others with the greatest intention in the world, to be appreciative and forgiving and accountable for everything. And asking, does go both ways, right? I have just templated ask. Happy to send I have a formula of asking, and it's open-ended and closed. It's very lawyer-like, but it teaches people how to ask one simple thing, right? Do you know anyone that can help me? Or would this help you, right? Considering everything you say, the reasons, impacts, capability, can you see any reason you won't want to do this, or allow me to help you with this? It's all about asking. And so, I'm always happy to send those out to everyone. I call it the ask and attract strategy. It's in my book. I send my book out. You have them there as well, but just email me, david@meltzer.com, because asking is the most powerful thing in the world. You can't ask big enough. You can't ask often enough. And you just need to keep asking people in person, on the phone, via email, and traditional social media. I look at my sent box, Mike, every day still in my emails to see how many asks I have, because I want to be the master. If someone could tell me what's the greatest discipline you would want in your life, it's not working out, it's not eating, it's asking. It's literally, if I could be the best at something, I'd like to be the best at asking.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Again, a lot of people, I think, are taught at a young age that, again, like I mentioned earlier, that asking, it's improper, it's rude, it's greedy, or what have you. And when you frame it the way the way you just did, it's important, because if you don't ask, then no one's going to be able to give you that help. And I learned that at a young age as well. Growing up, I think the way we did, you kind of had you had no options. You know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to, you either went, by the grace of God go I, right? I tell people I was going to either be a criminal or a lawyer, and I was a little bit of both, I think, when I was a kid. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. And again, I know we don't have a ton of time, but I just do want to just really jump again quick to the concept of happiness. When and just real quick to frame it. So again, we have very similar backgrounds. And I say this, and it sounds a little arrogant the way I'm going to say it, but in this house that I'd mentioned that I put on the market, in my bedroom, the first thing I do when I wake up, other than looking at my wife and my dogs that are sharing the bed with me, there's a painting from Romero Brito. It's an original painting of his over the fireplace in my house. It sounds so fucking arrogant to what I just said, but it's of the word happy. And I look at it every single morning and to remind myself of how grateful, I need to be. But like, talk real quick about happiness, and what I think what a lot of people don't understand is it's something that we need to work at. And if you could just touch upon, the work that's involved in happiness, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, so I have 5 daily practices. Once again, I'd be happy to send it people. Put in the notes my email, david@dmeltzer.com.
Yeah.
You got to know your what, you got to know your who, you got to know your how, you got to know your now, and you got to know your why. And those 5 daily practices are the keys to happiness. Happiness is defined as the enjoyment, if you're capable of enjoying the consistent, everyday, persistent, without quit pursuit of your own potential, not listening to other people, not listening to what you don't want, not listening to what's missing, but what you want. And so many people don't see that pain, like Les Brown. Pain is an indicator. It's a turn signal. It's not a stop sign. Pain is what indicates we have a lesson to learn. And guess what? If you learn a lesson, there'll be no pain, right? Solution. There's no problems if you have the solution, right? If you got the teacher's guide, there's no problems passing the test. That's the same thing in life. You just got to figure out the teacher's guide. And pain is going to indicate to you that you have something to learn. And so when we have gratitude, which will allow you to find the light, the love, and the lessons and everything, I don't do anything I don't love to do. It's not that I naturally love everything in the same degree, but what I do is have faith that there's love in everything, there's light in everything, there's truth in everything. And before I do it, any activity, I'm going to learn to love it before I do it, or I'm going to delegate it or not do it if I can't. And then the forgiveness gives us peace, and the accountability gives us control by simply asking, what did I do to attract this in my life, and what am I supposed to learn from it? All 3 of these clear the interference between you and what you already are, because you are happy, you are healthy, you are wealthy, you are worthy. Figure out what you're doing to interfere with what you already are. Don't try to go get something that you already have.
Wow, you know what? And that's it. I mean, that's where to end it. Again, I just really appreciate you spending the time with me here on the Alden Report. We've been on with David Meltzer. If you'd like some more information about David, why don't you just Google David Meltzer? You go to his website, dmeltzer.com. He's obviously pretty active on Twitter and Instagram, David Meltzer. Again, he's a best-selling author. His books are changing the world. Go to his website. Also, he has a program that he's trying to help people all over the world, over 1 billion people, to become happy. And what I've learned at my age and where I am at life, that happiness is really, for me, and I think for everybody, the only thing that matters. So I want to thank you so much, David, for being my guest. My name is Michael Alden. That's David Meltzer, and we'll see you soon. Today's episode is brought to you in part by ConnectionCapital.com. That's ConnexTion Capital.com. That's ConnexTion Capital.com. You are 1 connection away from your life changing forever. Have you ever tried to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or even Clubhouse, and you couldn't quite connect with them? That's because the biggest gap in the world is the gap of access. It's not the wealth gap. It's not the credit gap. It's the access gap. ConnectionCapital.com is leveling the playing field, and it's free to join. Visit ConnectionCapital.com, ConnexTion Capital.com. Again, it's ConnexTion Capital.com. You are 1 connection away from your life changing forever.